I want to do today, are we going?
Yes.
Hello. What I want to do today is continue on that idea of the cross contour, but work with it as it pertains to the landscape. Okay. So are you all ready to do something other than just one color?
Yes.
Yes. Can I get it? Can I get an amen?
Amen.
Amen. Whoa.
Preach
yeah.
it, Pastor.
I like it.
Definitely maybe.
All right, so what we're going to do, we're not going to go hog wild with the color, but we are going to start introducing some color. And what I'd like for you guys to do with your color this time is limit it to white, yellow ochre, burnt sienna, and then you can use either your ultramarine blue or your black. Okay? So squeeze out some white here. And does anybody know what this is called when you use just this group of colors? Well, it approximates the primaries, but the yellow ochre and the burnt sienna well, it's hard to tell there. The yellow ochre and the burnt sienna are what we call earth colors. They're made from natural pigments, all right? Here you can probably see the yellow ochre a little better than you could. You see, it's yellow, but it's, how else would you describe that color?
Brown mustard.
Brown mustard. Perfect. I wouldn't put it on your hot dogs though. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and use the ultramarine blue. That's going to be the one more or less bright color on the palette. But it is like primaries. So we've got yellow, red, and blue. And if you weren't using the blue and you wanted to use black, that would be okay, because black, in this case the ivory black, is a cool color. So it would function as your blue. If you mix ivory black and the yellow ochre, you're going to get kind of a nasty green. Okay, you're not going to get a beautiful green anyway with that yellow ochre. But we've just got three simple colors here. It's called a limited palette. I remember one of my professors in college saying it's hard to make a bad painting with a limited palette, because you know all those colors go together. And then he immediately followed that up by saying it's hard to make a good one too, you know, because you cut off one arm in terms of what you can do with the color. Now there we go. What I want to do is really think about what's going on with the landscape. And we talked initially last time about using horizontal lines to indicate a ground plane that's moving away from us. Whereas if we're painting this brick wall that's facing us, you wouldn't want to get filled up with these kinds of marks. You'd want to use vertical lines so that that plane stands up. So that's what I'm going to try to emphasize today in my painting. I left my brushes I wanted to use at home, so don't have the brushes I want. I'm using a limited palette. How much more disastrous could this be? And my palette is a disaster.
I mean, you could be outside.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I don't know. I'd rather be outside. Now, what I'm going to make the emphasis of my painting, I'm going to get into the trees a little bit, but I'm going to chop them off. You know, I'm not going to go all the way to the top of the trees, because I want my landscape to be about what's going on with the ground plane. And if I scoot way over here, I can see, you know, there's kind of this hill coming up there, and then we get the parking lot. I kind of do something like that with it. The street and the parking lot, let that come across. And it's almost like you're wanting to kind of paint what's going on, how the ground is moving, And the beautiful thing about this scene today is that they've mowed the lawn fairly recently, so you've got all these great curves in there. And see, this hill kind of comes up and then goes along that way. Why am I using blue to draw with? Because that ground plane is not blue.
Closest to green that you have currently.
What's that?
It's the closest to green that you have currently.
Closest to green that I have, okay. What else is going on with the blue?
Well, it's
What?
your dark color, so.
Excuse me?
It's your dark color, and right now you're basically painting the divots in the ground.
It is kind of my dark color.
It's a cool tone.
It's a cool tone. Oh, you're getting warmer. He's almost got the answer there.
Cool tones come in the shadows. So.
Cool tones fit in the shadows. That's true. That's good.
Subject for popcorn.
Oh, you're close, but you're not quite in there.
For contrast?
No. See, I have these lines kind of leading up to where the drive is there, and by doing that and then going just straight across with the drive, that tells us that plane is really flat there. Let's see if I can get these trees in here a little bit. I may just get a couple of them. You know, I'm only going to get them like, say, so.
You never told us why you're using it.
Oh yeah, how about that? I'm not gonna, it's a secret. Nick! So they said that the Impressionists, have you heard of those painters before? Yes? Okay. They said that the Impressionists only painted, or always drew on their canvas with blue. And their logic was that it represented the color of air. Now, blue is, somebody said cool color? Okay. Being a cool color, what does that color do? Does it jump out or does it kind of hang back? What? Hangs back, exactly. Warm colors advance, cool colors recede. Okay, what are our warm colors? Yellow, orange, red. Our cool colors, blue, violet. Green sits on the fence. If it's a yellow green, it's going to be warm. If it's a blue green, it's going to be much cooler. So what I've done here is, again, like I said last time, just kind of given a topographic map to the painting. Can everybody see that okay? You guys? Okay. So I've already got a sense of movement in the painting, don't I? Yes? Maybe, kind of, sort of? Okay. Like if I decide, you know, right off the bat, I'm going to come in and do a little more like where these trees are kind of casting shadows, I can do that. But what I want to continue to do is what?
Describe where the slope is.
Well, I'm showing the shadow, but I'm still staying on my plane. See, I've got the shadow, but it's not breaking the plane. If I went in there and made brush strokes like this, that's breaking the plane, isn't it? So keep a marked direction in mind as you go along, and if you'll start like this and just kind of map out where you want all your marks to go and what direction you want them to go, then the rest of the painting just more or less will paint itself. All right, let's see. I'm not convinced this is the one I want, but we'll try it anyway. So, what do you think? Should I start with shadows or start with lights? Or start by not answering that phone call? shadows. Okay, so I've kind of done that with the shadows off the tree. I'm gonna come in a little bit now. With some brush strokes showing where that tree is kind of growing across there, and this guy getting some brush strokes in there. When you come off that hill right here, there's a little bit of a shadow, but you want to keep making your marks so they're following that same directional thing you had going. Okay, so I'm going to ignore the cars in the parking lot. If you want a disaster in your painting, go ahead and put some cars in. Okay, they just 9 times out of 10 look terrible. Just getting a strong directional thing going on here. I'm going to say that the pavement back here is a little bit darker, and that as it comes forward, I'm going to spread my marks out a little bit wider. And take your marks when you're doing a plane, when you're doing an area, right up to the edge. Don't chicken out when you get near the edge. Go ahead and take it right up to the edge so that you're really able to sell me on what that plane is doing. Okay, who was the artist we mentioned in class already today? Van Gogh. This is what he's all about. Mark direction and energy. Why do we know so much about Van Gogh? He was a very interesting cat. Yeah. Why else? Okay. They say nothing ever goes away that you put on here, right? So 60 years in the future, Bailey is the celebrated painter. Okay? She's the toast of the New York art scene. How do they know what she thought about the painting that she makes today? They're going to look at her texts. She's like, oh man, I kicked this painting's ass today. Okay? You know, or what have you. They're going to look at her text. What did they look at from Van Gogh?
His journals?
His letters. He was a prolific letter writer. He painted a lot, and he wrote a lot, and he read a lot. I can't remember if it's 5 or 7 languages that he spoke, including English. So if you ever want to travel back in time, he'd be a good guy to go talk to because he could talk to you. Okay? But what Van Gogh did is, like, he'd do a painting and then he'd write a letter to his brother about it, and thank God his brother's wife saved all those letters. But in the letter, he'd do a little sketch of what the painting looked like. So you know, this is exactly what he was thinking when he painted that painting. Okay, so it was all about this mark direction and line. You know, even though we're doing paintings, like if you go back and look not only at Van Gogh's paintings, but look at his drawings too. They've got so much energy, and it's the mark direction that makes them work. So I've kind of got things laid out. I'm going to come in with my yellow ochre, which is not a beautiful color, but this will just give you guys a chance to start doing a little color mixture. When I look off in the distance here, I want to lighten that guy up some. When I look off in the distance, that yellow ochre, you know, is the closest that I can come to showing that, you know, there's a little bit of light falling on that scene. But as you continue to develop your painting with the colors and you start laying them in, what am I continuing to do here? Excuse me?
Follow your original mark.
Following my original marks. You know, I've got a nice kind of blueprint out here. And I'm just looking for some places where I can put some of the lighter color in now.
So the real reason you paint with blue is so that you have a blueprint later on?
Ha ha! Yes. That was terrible. You're going to do well in paint. One thing I always mean to put in the syllabus, and I never remember it until it's too late every semester, is you must laugh at the instructor's jokes. Okay. Alright. So, just kind of emphasizing that. This mid-ground between the trees and where it starts getting a shadow, I think it gets just a little bit darker. So I'm going to mix the ultramarine and the yellow ochre and a little bit of white here. And you can see I can get something approximating a green. It's not a real pretty green by any stretch of the imagination, but it gets me in the woo neighborhood. Won't that be dynamic?
Yes.
Okay.
Good thing we're recording in 3D.
Coming in here, taking that right up to where it meets the parking lot. Right up to the tree trunk. In a little bit, let it start to blend a little bit. I realize this looks really rough, but you know, when I start a painting, I know that every brush stroke I put down at the beginning is going to get covered up. So is there really any reason for me to be real careful at this point, at this stage? Yes? No? I mean, if you're doing the painting and you know I'm going to get more careful as I go along, why be careful? Why be overly careful at the start? The pavement has kind of a blue-violet look to it, so I'm going to mix the blue and I'm going to put a little bit of the burnt sienna in with that. Half decent pavement color. Hey, I'm sorry that the videos last week were slow to load. You would not believe the amount of time it is taking to get those things onto YouTube. I mean, hours and hours and hours. The actual making the video and the painting is not painful, but boy, the whole rest of the process is. And I've been getting these messages that say, video is too long. You know, we're not going to let you upload it. You have to verify your account. It's the college's account, and I've verified it numerous times, and it doesn't care. But you'd think it'd be nice if YouTube would give you that message at the start of the process, but instead, it spends 3 hours uploading. Seriously, a 40-minute video, 3 hours uploading it, and then starts processing it, and then I get the message. And it just throws it all away, and it's like back to square one. So, not the most fun. What's that?
It's got a new algorithm and a bunch of new systems in it in place as of 2020, so
Oh, it's a
it's a
pain.
mess.
Well, the tech people at the college are able to load it up no problem, but I'm having to like put it in a Google Drive, share it with the IT, blah 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 blah. Okay, getting a little darker where it meets the edge of the landscape. Okay. How's my space reading? Does it make sense to you? Yes? No? Maybe? Kind of, sort of?
Yes.
Okay. I like in looking at y'all's paintings that how some of you took things farther and went, you know, and got really detailed with your scenes. Don't be afraid to do that with this one. At the same time, go ahead and, you know, make sure you're letting all your brush strokes show. I'm gonna get these shadows a little bit. More dynamic here. And just as I go along, you see, I'm still sticking with my blueprint, although not losing my mark directions. May have lost them a little bit up in that yellow ochre area, so I'm going to come in with a little bit of variety to the ochre, to the marks in there. And just come in a little darker and let these marks kind of the farther away you get in space in the scene that you're painting, the more the marks are going to kind of flatten out. So if you've got a lot of space in the scene that you're painting, the farther back you get, the closer things get to being just almost purely nothing but horizontal lines. And when I come into the tree here, I'm just going to put some kind of blocky brush strokes in for the foliage so that it separates nicely from the area underneath. Here up in the corner, you know, I've got that little bit of light coming in, so I'm going to mix some yellow ochre back into the greens there so that I get a little bit of a lighter color. That's not quite light enough. There we go. See, and I'll use these strokes to indicate the foliage in the tree and kind of give them a little just a little bit of light in that back one. What color are tree trunks?
Yes.
What? Who said brown? Okay. You said what? Gray.
What about birch?
Well, birch is okay.
Birch is white.
So our mind tells us brown. Because I don't know, when you're in kindergarten or something, they tell you tree trunks are brown. You go, okay, all right. But if you look, like if I look at this one right here, it's the one that's closest to us and lightest. Yeah, I could say gray, but to me, I see just the slightest hint of some purple, but it's gray. That's your base. Start with that. If you go in and just make brown tree trunks, things are going to look fairly ridiculous. Because in that case, you're painting what you know or what you've heard, and you're not painting what you see. The way we see things is based largely on our ability to name them. There is some dirt there, which is kind of nice and gives it a little variety from everything that surrounds it. But the way we see things is based on our ability to name them. So, you know, I see Ian, and I know what Ian looks like, and I go, Ian. I don't have to keep looking at him, right? Who would want to? Ooh. Okay. All right. You know what I'm saying? You know, I've been married forever. 33 years. So when I walk in the house, if my wife is reading a book, does she even look up? No, she knows what I look like. She knows who I am. She knows I'm probably going to do something to aggravate her. Okay? That's just the way that works. All right? So when you look at there and you go, tree. Oh, tree, got it. Okay? And then you say, tree trunks, brown. Mix brown. And then you wonder why your painting doesn't look like what you're looking at. So really, when you paint, you want to turn this off. You want to go straight from these two to this. And the more successful you are at doing that, the stronger your paintings will be. And that's a mess on that brush and that brush. Oh, it's a new brush. Fixing to get messy. See, if I cut into that shadow a little bit with some lights now, and still keep my mark direction, starts to get a little more dynamic. Stay lighter still in the foreground. I haven't almost knocked my water over today. What do you guys think? Is it going to be a clean day, or am I going to have a late disaster? Caleb's saying I can make that happen. Just coming in. Now I want this plane to be light, so I'm painting it out light. But what is happening at the same time when I paint that light?
In the
Excuse me?
foreground.
Yeah, but I'm also, what am I losing?
Your planes.
I'm losing my planes there, so I'm going to come in and get that color. I'm going to mix some more white in here. I want to come out back here and really, you know, get that backlit like it is. Also, you know, we talked about how things in the distance, the planes kind of flatten out. Another thing that happens with them in the distance, things get lighter, bluer, and grayer as you get farther away. That is called atmospheric perspective. Okay? Like, you know, I can see through the trees way off into the distance over there by Old 21. And there are trees and everything out there, and I know they're the same color as these, but they don't look anything like these. They're really light, really blue, really gray. So that would be something to keep in mind, particularly if you've got a lot of distance in your landscape. I want to get a little bit of that yellow up here. Does my space seem like it's almost moving a little bit? Okay, that's what you want to go for. How's our battery?
42%, sir.
Okay. How far along are we in the process?
You're at 31 minutes, 41 seconds.
Okay. I'm getting close. Okay, I'm going to come in with my shadow again, still keeping my brush strokes going there. I'm going to mix a lot of white with that kind of neutral blue that I have and use that to come in for this trunk. I'm going to sneak it onto that one too. So get a little shape, little form there. You know, when you're doing a landscape, you want to try to hint at all the variety that's out there. So rather than just like mixing up one color for the ground plane, you know, put a lot of different colors in there and let them mix, not physically, but visually, so that when you look at the painting, you let the viewer's eyes do some of the mixing in here. And see, I'm going to come in with just a little bit, just a few strokes for that hill. Maybe let it get a little darker there. And see, that makes a nice separation between this hill and the way the ground is kind of sneaking down behind it there. Reinforce. Whoa, look, my painting's moving. It's got so much movement to it. Okay, kind of a different approach to the landscape in that we just see a little bit of the trees at the very top, but it really gets us into moving around the ground plane here. And it's hard to find a landscape that's got a lot of wildly different moving planes, but that's why I worked at sneaking that little corner in here. But you see the roll of the hill, then it meets the parking lot, and then a perfectly flat plane of the parking lot and street there. And in doing that, you know, it still lays together, but it doesn't separate too much. Whereas if we had our landscape going like this, and then we got to the street and we went in with vertical strokes, that would look crazy, wouldn't it? What do you guys think it needs?
I just need to see what the landscape actually.
Yeah, come over here to the,
Just for a second.
see the little hill there that I've got?
Yeah.
Down in the bottom right corner. Yeah, everybody take a look at it.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense now I'm looking at it.
Okay. Maybe everybody should have looked to begin with.
Yeah, you're like, we're just gonna put these trees in there. I was like, but there's a lot of trees, I'm staring at them.
Yeah, all I'm getting is the very bottom of the two to the right here. So, okay. Any questions? I want to just punch up the blue just a little bit more in a few spots. I don't like any of these brushes. They stink. So I started with the blue and with the lines and had that great line direction going. So I'm going to kind of come in now, especially in the shadows, and reinforce my lines again. So you may see now in looking at the painting, what I was saying earlier, hard to make a bad painting with a limited palette, but it's not the most eye-catching thing you've ever seen because it is somewhat limited. If you'll really pay attention to what you're doing with your marks, where one plane meets another, that'll give you a better painting. And I want to just reinforce where these guys meet. Almost looks like a pond out there now, doesn't it? With the blue. Do you like the blue as opposed to if I just used black there? Yes? No? Okay. So it's up to you. You can use just black or you can use the ultramarine blue. I suppose you could even use your Prussian or your phthalo blue if you wanted to, but just pick one of your darker blues, the yellow ochre, the burnt sienna. What color is not really too prominent in my painting? The burnt sienna, yeah. About the only place I found that I was able to work it in was under the bottom of the trees. I could probably work a few strokes in some other places, but you guys get the idea. All right, so limited palette, landscape, emphasizing planar directions and movement. So that's what you've got today. And then on Thursday, I will get a still life in a similar vein posted. It'll be less about mark direction, but my thought is you're painting, you're making marks. You may as well think about your direction as opposed to just being mindless and saying, I make them all this direction because I'm right-handed. All right, so I'll get that posted as soon as I can. Was it helpful to have the landscape from last week posted as well? Yes, okay. How many of you watched that one also? Okay. All right, I'll keep posting those, but what I'll probably do